icy chill of isolation ever seep into your soul while staying in an unfamiliar hotel room, especially when you're alone? Perhaps not. Maybe you've never had to encounter the echoing silence of an empty hotel room. Yet when I was a child, these hollow spaces of luxury would transform into cavernous nightmares. The merest inkling of nightfall would trigger my overactive imagination. Every 20 seconds or so, my eyes would dart to the dimly lit corners of the room, half expecting to find a lurker hiding in the shadows. This relentless fear was not just a bane to my peace of mind, but a constant source of vexation for my parents as well. I would persistently demand to sleep sandwiched between them until I was on the brink of my preteens, 9 or 10 years old to be exact. However, the relentless march of time forced me to feign courage. I moved to my own bed, or at times, shared it with my sister. The apparitions of my childhood fears receded into the corners of my mind. Now, as a 24-year-old independent adult, my work requires frequent travel. A particular business trip led me to North Carolina, where I found myself booked at a Comfort Inn. The arrangement was, of course, comfortably covered by my employers. I was in this unfamiliar territory for a crucial meeting with an office in a different town. The inn was to be my sanctuary for the night. An impersonal fortress, standing in stark contrast to the vibrant car dealership that shimmered across the street. The surroundings were nondescript, forgettable, the details disappearing as rapidly as the setting sun. That's all I remember. Yet, as the dusk settled, those long dormant fears from my childhood began to stir once again in the dimming corners of my hotel room. My following day was vacant, a blank canvas that promised nothing but leisure. Nestled within the comfort of the hotel, I anticipated a languid day of absorbing movie marathons. The flickering glow of the television illuminated my room as the unnerving narrative of the first Saw movie played out. An ironic choice, considering what was to transpire. As the on-screen character, Adam, began hearing sounds in his on-screen apartment, a ripple of unease threaded through my spine. Was my reality mirroring the film? A subtle, unsettling noise, a faint, indistinct scratching, seeped from the depths of the closet. The echo of my childhood phobias threatened to claw their way back into my consciousness. But I was 24. I berated myself, seeking to exorcise these irrational, infantile fears. The volume of the movie increased, a deliberate act to muffle the unidentified sound. To further suppress my escalating paranoia, I resorted to pharmaceutical aid. 2 sleeping pills disappeared into the cavern of my mouth, destined to carry me off into unconsciousness once the film ended. The television screen blinked into darkness, leaving me wrapped in the quiet hum of the hotel room. Shuffling in bed, I turned onto my side, the promise of sleep tantalizingly close. Yet, the silence did not last. The disquieting scratching noises invaded the room once again, puncturing the tranquility. It wasn't persistent but irregular, a solitary echo every minute or so, an oral specter whose indescribable resonance wove a web of terror I just couldn't shake off. The vague scratching noise persisted, emanating sporadically from the belly of the closet. Its infrequency was not enough to fully awaken my anxiety, and the chemical lull of the sleeping pills was beginning to take hold. As the veil of unconsciousness descended upon me, the noise faded into the background, and I was whisked away into oblivion within a scant 10 minutes. The tranquility was short-lived. The intrusive sound of fabric being roughly manipulated yanked me back into reality. Startled, I jolted upright. The pervasive darkness had swallowed the room whole, rendering me blind even to the space immediately before me. I hastily flicked the bedside lamp on, casting an eerie glow that dispelled the blackness. It was then that I saw him, a monstrous apparition clad entirely in shadowy garments, out obscuring his features. He towered at a menacing 6.5 feet, a daunting 250 pounds of menace. His gloved hands were rooting through my bag. A terror-induced scream ripped through the silent night, ricocheting off the walls. Startled, the intruder turned and bolted, abandoning the room and the loot he'd found. My wallet and watch had vanished with him, but he left behind a spectral imprint far more potent, a rekindling of the paralyzing dread that had been my constant childhood companion. Never before had I encountered a real-life story paralleling this grotesque scenario. The terrifying turn of events seemed to echo my peculiar, deeply seated childhood fears, amplifying them into a horrifying reality. It was a psychological cataclysm for me, someone who had carried such an oddly specific fear since the days of my youth. It seemed as though the shadows of my past had taken a tangible form, wreaking havoc on my present. This bone-chilling account unfolded in the sultry heart of summer when I was but 12 years old. My mother, my younger brother, and I found ourselves checked into a hotel in a sprawling metropolis. We were in town to visit extended family, but had opted for the impersonal comfort of a hotel room over familial hospitality. With my brother being significantly younger than me, I was often handed the responsibility of being his guardian. This day was no different. Upon our arrival, our mother instructed me to watch over him while she handled the mundane check-in process. Complying, we settled ourselves on an inconspicuous couch in the grand lobby, surrendering to a brief moment of relaxation. The entrance to the hotel faced us, and it was through these revolving doors that a man of roughly middle age strolled in. He was strikingly ordinary, with features so nondescript that any attempt to recreate his image might result in countless variations. Instead of heading straight to the front desk as most guests do, he chose to sit on the couch directly across from us. It was an odd deviation from the norm that tingled my preteen sensibilities. I couldn't shake off the uneasy feeling that perhaps he'd followed us in. Just as the atmosphere became unbearably tense, our mother summoned us with the news that our room was ready. Hastily, we gathered our belongings and made our way out of the increasingly claustrophobic lobby. Later that evening, after a whirlwind of family visits, we returned to our hotel sanctuary around 7 p.m. Our mother, in an effort to decompress, suggested a swim in the hotel's indoor pool. Enthusiastically, we retreated to our room, changed into our swimwear, and descended to the pool. No sooner had we dipped our toes in the cool, inviting water than the man from the lobby made his appearance. This time, he wore jeans and a nondescript top, a strange choice of attire for a poolside scenario. A shiver ran down my spine, a sense of dread swallowing the initial excitement. The chilling sight of the man plunged a cheerful evening into the depths of a macabre narrative that still haunts me. Cloaked in a sweater and jeans, the man was clearly not there for a swim. This simple observation might have been innocuous in a different setting, but here, it sent waves of disquiet through us. My mother, her face now etched with palpable worry, quietly pointed him out. She issued a whispering ultimatum: if he didn't leave within 5 minutes, we have to make an abrupt departure ourselves. The minutes tripped away like molasses, each passing second amplifying our unease. Without any sign of the stranger's departure, we hastily collected our belongings, the joyful pool experience now tainted by a shadow of unease. It was nearing 8 o'clock. To distract ourselves, we decided to unwind with a rented movie, aiming to end the day on a calmer note. Yet, the ominous presence of the man had left an indelible mark, putting both my mother and me on high alert. Midway through the film, my mother excused herself for a shower, leaving me alone in the quiet of the hotel room. As the soft, almost soothing sound of the shower played in the background, an unexpected knock punctuated the stillness. A voice followed, claiming to be housekeeping. I found it peculiar that the cleaning staff would show up at this hour, but we did need an extra towel. I made the naive decision to open the door, only to be greeted by the unwelcome sight of the same, ominously ordinary man. He offered me a chilling smile, accompanied by a languid wave, paralyzing me momentarily with fear. The horrifying possibilities of what could ensue rushed into my mind: kidnapping, assault, unspeakable torture. As the silence grew heavier, the sound of the shower abruptly ceased. The man, seemingly unbothered, spoke in a tone as icy as his gaze. "How was your swim?" Just then, my mother emerged from the bathroom, taking in the horrifying scene at the doorway. With protective urgency, she pulled me back, slammed the door shut, and promptly secured the lock. Without skipping a beat, she picked up the phone and dialed the front desk, each ring echoing the terror that had stealthily infiltrated our supposed sanctuary. As my mother hastily dialed the hotel's front desk from our in-room phone, her hands trembling with a mix of fear and fury, I urged her to call the police. But in her state of escalating panic, my pleas fell on deaf ears. Instead, she insisted on requesting a room change, believing it would offer a swift escape from the immediate threat. In the deafening silence that followed, a series of thunderous footsteps echoed ominously from outside our door, each one sounding like a crushing blow to our security. They grew fainter and fainter, seemingly retreating away from our room, until they were swallowed by the foreboding silence. It appeared, mercifully, that our unwanted visitor had taken his leave. But the echoes of his departure rang heavily in the stillness, offering little in the way of relief. As quickly as possible, we relocated, moving our lives from one hotel room to another under a shroud of fear. The rest of our stay passed without further incident, with the mysterious man nowhere in sight. But his specter lurked around every corner, transforming an ordinary hotel into a labyrinth haunted by dread and paranoia. Our brief reprieve became a days-long nightmare from which we awoke only upon leaving the city behind.